government fails, the world's off its rails, leaders are whacked, democracy is under attack. It's time to get smart, folks, time to get real. Let's cut through the crap, tell us how you feel. Let's pull back the curtain and open the door. Get some stuff that's not bought and paid for. Let's hurt border to border, coast to coast. Let's cue the talent, let's meet the host. Podcast by George.
Hello, hi, how are you? And welcome to another podcast by George. We're back on the podcast. We're back under self-quarantine, of course. I mean, this thing just never seems to change. It just keeps on keeping on. We're locked down, and I'm trying to diversify a little bit. I'm trying to bring some news, blues, and interviews into the world. I hope you've caught some of the interviews with the nurses in particular that are out there on the front lines fighting this COVID-19 thing. It's just great. And I'm trying to share a little entertainment, get together, kind of revisits with a lot of folks that you may have seen or heard on the podcast before, and that's what we're doing today. It's our old buddy, it's our old pal, it's the cuz, as I call him, Bob Pace. Welcome to a podcast by George, Bob.
How you doing, George?
Oh, we're doing all right here. And, you know, when I call you cousin, I tell people it's distant. I mean, you got to have one of those family trees that looks like a flowchart to figure it out, but Bob's uncle was married to my aunt for a short time, so we're related on the family tree that way. You can figure it out if you see it, but it's distant, but it's real. That's why I call him the cuz, and I'm just delighted to have him back on the PBG podcast by George. And I want to start off, get the basics out of the way. I like these bona fides. I love these bios that I read for my guests before every show. It kind of lets you know who they are and kind of reaffirms their place in the world. My bio, I think, would just read, you know, something like, made some mistakes, did some things. Well, actually made more mistakes than did things. But here's Bob's bio. Guitarist Bob Pace has entertained Midwest audiences for more than 40 years. He proudly led the Tuesday night house band at the legendary Blues on Grand for almost 20 years. He's a member of the Iowa Blues Hall of Fame and also the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and there aren't many of those. So he's a dual title holder, kind of like the old WBC and the WBA back in the boxing days. You can hear him play every Friday at the Gas Lamp work release party, and of course I'll be there too. And I don't know, Bob, I jump in here. That's kind of a unique thing. That work release party, that's what you would call a house residency or something like that. And you've been doing that for years. And that's a really envious thing. That's a cool deal. Talk about that a little bit.
I took it over from Something New. George recommended me for it, and they gave me a shot at it. The first year was pretty rough, getting new family and friends to come see us play, see what we had to offer. But little by little, we built up a bit of a following, and now I call it a family. And it really is. I mean, I really miss pretty much everybody that comes out there, other places too, but that's kind of where I hold church, kind of. And that's where all the family gathers.
It is kind of a church. It's kind of a revival and something you can count on. It's every Friday. It's got that cool name, Work Release Party, and the concept is really great. I mean, after the work week and you're ready to let loose a little bit, and even before you get home, you can stop by after work and everybody's there. And I mean, you'd swear it was midnight sometimes instead of late on Friday afternoons. It's happy hour, of course, because of the time of day. The drinks are cheap. The band is hot. It's just great. And that's one of the band formulations that you play with. Now, that's the Dangerous Band. Uh-huh. And that's with Ben Williams Jr. and our old buddy Tommy. Talk about your collaboration, your trio there.
Gosh, we've been together a long time, and I've known Tom for probably 30 years. We've been in and out of bands for that long. And Ben was a happy surprise. I'm not sure how I actually got a hold of him, but it was through a couple of other drummers. I had George McCutcheon in the band and his brother John for a couple of years in the band. And I think somebody recommended Ben. I remember what it is now. my son's band. My son had a band, and I asked them if I could steal Ben from the band when they were breaking up, and they said, "Yeah, go for it." And that's how I got Ben. Short-term memory loss, sorry. And he's been a godsend to us. I mean, he's one of the greatest guys you'd ever want to meet. And he's a really skilled drummer, keeps a great pocket. He's not a showboater. I'm not going to say anything about other musicians. I don't want to slam anybody. But I've had a hard time over the years finding people that want to be a team player instead of just look at me, even though I'm accused of that a lot because of the theatrics I used to entertain with.
Well,
so I'm not trying to call the kettle black or anything.
you know, I love talking about the Dangerous Band. I love watching those guys, but you've got several things going on. You've got, and you mentioned your sons, the boys there. You used to have a family band that was a rock and blues. Now you've disbanded temporarily, but I'd like for you to mention them because, folks, if you ever get a chance to watch this is really cool. I'll put it in this context for folks. You know, I grew up in a really blue-collar, redneck kind of environment. We had a trucking and excavating company. We were farmers. I mean, bulldozers and dump trucks and farm tractors and stuff like that. But every once in a while, when I was a young man and I could get out on a job and do something, because my old man was really good at all that stuff. If I could do something really good, you know, it was a special moment. I mean, he had great pride in that because that was his world and I lived in it for a short while. And I'll never forget the feeling of being able to do something well and having the satisfaction of doing that in what I would call my dad's world. And I get a sense of that, Bob, when I watch you and the boys.
Yeah. It's been a privilege for me. Of course, there's nothing feels quite like it. My sons grew up playing music. My son Nicholas is a bass player, and Tony, my other boy, is a guitar player. He started out playing drums for me, and then he went to guitar, and he became pretty good pretty quick. And he's not the best guitar player on the planet, but I'll tell you what, if you get in a blues situation with him, he can hold his own pretty well, even against me. And that's not a brag, but I mean, he knows how to get over the old man pretty good. So I'm really proud of him. I've got some videos on Facebook, I believe, from Jay Gillum. I'll see if I can repost those for people that might want to see that. I think we played at Star Bar over last winter.
I was there.
And, yeah, and that came off pretty well, as I recall. So
it was great.
We'll get together again someday.
I got the videos. I got the videos to prove it. Well, let's get back to you here real quickly. I want to take a spin through this. Now, I mean, you've got this great experience, breadth of work. I mean, you've been doing this for 50-some years. You've opened for blues icons, Jimmy Vaughn, Johnny Winter, John Mayall, Tab Benoit, Tower of Power, Delbert McClinton, bunch of others. And, of course, you got started early, starting when you were 10. It says serious by 14. You had that defining experience of watching the Beatles and the Screaming Girls on the Ed Sullivan Show. So for maybe the half generation before us, it was Elvis Presley, of course.
Sure.
And those two events, I'm always reminded, everybody today, they're always, railing against Donald Trump, myself included, and they can't believe that we've got this circumstance in Washington, D.C. And well, what the hell? You remember the Beatles?
Right.
It's all TV, and the moment, I don't know. That's how that stuff works. All right, so it says here, Bob's jammed with Junior Wells, Eric Sardinas, Coco Montoya, Kenny Neal, Willie Big Eye Smith, and Sonny Rhodes, to name just a few. All right, well, so let's move the career along here a little bit, or out of the past when you're starting out 10, 14 years old, did the high school, getting started band kind of thing, and then you had a career. I mean, you were working full time in this business in the 70s. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I don't remember a lot of it, to be honest. I'm told I had a great time. And occasionally somebody comes up of our age bracket that reminds me of the times I had.
I saw you back then. I don't remember it either, so don't feel bad. But I remember the band titles. I remember you were in Sky Dancer. That I think they became Dancer. I remember the Pelican Peace Band. And those bands were really good, Bob. It was kind of at the cutting edge, the beginning of, the rock that is what we know today. Do you remember the music? Let's put it that way. What do you remember
sure.
about that? Yeah.
It was all Black Sabbath, Uriah Heep. Boston's first album came out, and we had a guy from Marshalltown. He's passed away now, Doc Warren Lawson, and he was a phenom on keyboards. He could play the entire Boston album note for note. He was just crazy good. He jammed with REO Speedwagon's keyboard guy and pretty much beat him to a pulp.
Yeah.
As far as musically,
yeah,
he was just a phenom. I do miss that guy. He was great. The whole band was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you became from a rock guy to you had a long time in country, right?
Yeah. From playing rock and roll, I mean, we were like 8 guys in a van traveling across the United States, and we were making like $1.50 a year a piece. And I came back home off the road, and somebody wanted me to fill in at a country gig, and I knew nothing about country at the time, nothing. And I did play the gig. I guess I got through it okay. And they gave me the money that night. It was like $100 or something. And I went, okay. I started dividing it up between the 4 guys. And he went, no, that's yours. What? You're kidding me. I'm making $100 just doing this? Yeah. Well, okay. I went home and asked my dad if I could borrow some of his records, because I'd been listening to blues already, and my mom was into Mahalia Jackson, Bessie Smith, Billie Holiday, gospel music. And my dad was pretty much a redneck, not quite red, but pretty close, pretty pink. And he had Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard and Waylon and Willie. And I just immersed myself in that stuff to get good at that, because, wow, I could make some money at this. And I really grew to love the music itself, too. I mean, when I look at country music these days, I can admire a lot of the people out there performing. There's great people, great artists, but I still tend to gravitate back towards my 70s and 80s country people that I've always loved and respected. And I just tried to learn how to play that stuff, and I did a lot of years of country music. I have a lot of memories of that.
Well,
that I do remember.
So we've got this rock and roll background. We've got the country covered, and then you just immersed yourself in the blues, and that's basically where we're at today still, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I just love blues. I listened to B.B. King when I was pretty young, and I really dug what he did. And when I started playing guitar, that was probably my first big hero, was B.B. And Stevie Ray Vaughan came quite a bit later, but of course he just turned the world on its ear with his sound. And after that, it was just Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix. I mean, the walls just came tumbling down, and every influence started coming in. And I just tried to assimilate as much of it as I could, and I just love the music.
They're considered a rock band, also blues though too. I know that at one point in time you had the Led Zeppelin catalog down pretty cold too.
Yeah, I was in a Led Zeppelin cover band for about a year or so, and I was doing all the Robert Plant vocals. And back then I could hit those notes. Yeah. I could hit a couple these days, but I had to take a running start to get to it.
Well, you and Robert both, I think so.
Yeah.
Don't feel too bad. All right, so here we are. Let's talk present day here a little bit. We've got the Dangerous Band on Fridays. Probably you're like a music chameleon to me, but your most recent incarnation is with the String Prophets and Catherine Severing Fox, who was on the podcast here just a few weeks ago. Talk about that project.
I'm just so proud of Catherine. She's come into town in the last couple of years and she hit all the jam sessions, met a lot of good people, and she's now a real force on the scene here in Des Moines and in Iowa. She's got so much talent. She's a sweetheart of a person. Her and her husband, Jeremy, are great people. Jeremy actually was up for a Grammy a few years ago for some music project he did. Catherine, her pedigree, her bio reads like a who's who of cool people to play with.
I know. I had her on the podcast. I did the same thing with her that I did with you. I read her bio, young person, they're going to have a few things they've done. Holy buckets.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing. I don't know where she's going to go, but she's already been some places, let me tell you.
Well, she'll
Yeah.
go as far as she wants to go. I know that for a fact. Really easy to work with. We seem to have a nice on-stage chemistry together. She's a buddy of mine. She's like a sister I never had, except for Mary, that I can tease, and she teases me back. And she's just a great woman. And I'm privileged to play with her. And we're writing stuff now for a CD. Hopefully, we get that out pretty soon. And we got lots of tunes that we're writing pretty much daily, back and forth. We send tracks to each other and modify them. And I'm pretty excited about what the future holds for us.
Well, so am I. And for folks that are watching this that aren't familiar with the String Prophets or with this duo, I want to put a little snippet in here. Now, this is from an earlier podcast that I did at Drake University. It was a great night, a great moment. These two were together. I'm going to play a little of this, and then we'll come back. You've got the guitar. I want you to play a little something for us on that as well. But I want to show folks just to give them a flavor of what the String Prophets are all about. Here we go.
All right.
Makes a hero, someone's drowning in the dam. The river was raging as he grabbed for her hand. He saved one life, he tried to save two. But the river, it takes what it wants from you. He made it out, he could have fallen in. River, it took one back from him. Saved one life, he tried to save two. They call him a hero, and I would too. Jason's gone, the monkey's off his back. No more pain, no needle track. Have their demons too. They might save a life, it might be you. And life is hard, it makes it so hard to be a hero and a hiding star. Jason's gone, but now his soul, ones he saved will tell you so. Jason's gone, the monkey's off his back. No more pain, his soul's intact. Angels have their demons too. Might save a life, it could be you.
So that's the String Prophets. That's Catherine Severing Fox and Bob Pace, recorded in front of a live studio audience, as they say, at Drake University. God, that was a great night, Bob. I mean, I really dug that. I mean, I like to watch that video every once in a while. That was really cool stuff.
It It was a magic night. That was one of our first gigs together. That was like probably third or fourth time we ever played together.
Yeah,
And
she's one of these, and you talked about Tommy and Ben Williams Jr. I mean, these really experienced, talented musicians. They pick up what you're putting down fairly quickly, right?
yeah, I'm not easy to play for because I don't give them a lot of time between tunes to really breathe or to get a drink of water or anything. I like to keep the show moving pretty good. Catherine's kind of the same kind of person. She likes to keep things going snappy, and she's amazing. I'm just so looking forward to getting back out in public and picking up where we left off and even better. So,
well, when we did that show, we had a segment in there where you played a John Prine song, and I remember it was another one of those special moments. We had some nice conversation about it. I had no idea at the time that we'd be coming back in the next podcast right after his death. I'm recording this just in the recent aftermath of John Prine passing away. I know he was a big thing to you. Talk a little bit about John Prine's influence on your music.
Poet and genius. He was just the best songwriter, the cleverest. He cut through all the BS and got right to the heart of the song, and he made you feel the song. And his personality, his charisma, and his voice, it was like a nice weathered old tire, but it was so comforting to listen to. And when you listen to him, you're hearing the truth, his interpretation of it, and it's usually a pretty good interpretation. Just the best. It's a big loss because as a songwriter, trying to be a good songwriter myself, I use his lessons every day. I try to take a song and pare it down to its the very least words it needs in order to say what you need to say. And that's what John was a master of.
Yeah. And this is the way I would describe him. I haven't heard anybody else say this, but when he broke out in the 70s or whatever, not everybody was doing that kind of, really nobody was doing the kind of music that he was doing. Like you were saying, it was all original. It was different. It wasn't really commercial at that point in time, but it's like the market and the world caught up to him. You hear a lot now about Americana music. You want to know what Americana music is? It's John Prine.
Prine.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And he was doing it for 30 years or longer. Yeah, that's great. Well, you got the guitar there. Can you play something of John's?
Yeah, sure.
I was a young child, family would travel down to western Kentucky where my parents were born. There's a backwards old town, it's hard to remember, so many times that my memories are worn. Daddy, won't you take me back to Muhlenberg County, down by the Green River, where paradise lay. Sorry, my son, you're too late at last. Mr. Peabody's Coltrane is hauled away. Well, sometimes we travel right down the Green River to the abandoned old prison down by Asian Hill. The air smells like steak, we shoot with our pistols, and empty pop bottles is all we would. Daddy, won't you take me down to Muhlenberg County, down by the Green River, where paradise lay. I'm sorry, my son, you're too late at last. Mr. Peabody's Coltrane is hauled away. Well, then the coal company came with the world's largest shovel, and they tortured the timber. They stripped all the land. Well, they dug for their coal till the land was forsaken, and they wrote it all down as progress of man. Daddy, won't you take me back to Muhlenberg County, down by the Green River where paradise lay? Well, I'm sorry, my son, you're too late at last. Mr. Peabody's Coltrane is hauled away. When I die, let my ashes float down the Green River. Let my soul roll on up to the Rochester Dam. We'll be halfway to heaven with paradise waiting, just 5 miles away from wherever I am. Daddy, won't you take me down to Muhlenberg County, down by the Green River where paradise lay? I'm sorry, my son, but you're too late, Alaska, 'cause Mr. Peabody's Coltrane's hauled it away. Well, I'm sorry, my son, but you're too late, Alaska, 'cause Mr. Peabody's Coltrane's hauled it away.
That's great. Yeah, thanks, pal. Roll on,
Absolutely.
John. John
Absolutely.
Prine. Yeah, my God. Yeah, I miss him. Well, we'll come back and revisit periodically with Bob Pace. There's his most recent CD just off my right shoulder there. That's Slow Burn. You got another one in the works. Now, this is going to be a String Prophet CD or
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some songs we've been trying out live, and people seem to be enjoying what we're doing. And we've got some new surprises. Catherine's been writing like a fiend lately with this isolation, and she's come up with some really amazing songs. And I'm just looking forward to having people hear what we have to offer.
Yeah, me too. And this is what I'm hoping. What makes a hero? Is that going to make it? Do you think? Is that going to make the final cut?
Absolutely, it'll be on there.
Yeah.
And I know the author of that song. We've got to get the rights to release it.
Yeah, well, I don't think just slip a check under the door. That ought to get the job done. I'll do anything for money. But my God, you ought to hear that with Catherine on that violin. Man, that'll make a grown man weep. I got to tell you, that's great stuff. Well, before we let you go, as far as you and it's funny that we were talking about the 70s. And I do a lot of stuff here that's what I know basically from the heartland. I know that quarantine and isolation is it's hard on everybody, but for people in rural areas and particularly farmers, they know how to what I call live lonely. I mean, they can do that. They can get by. Musicians, particularly those that were around in the 70s, like Bob was saying, making $1.50 or whatever, they know how to live poor. Yeah, they know how to live poor, and they're going to have to here for a while. My God, it's just hard because they're being denied the crowds that they need to survive and the juice that they get, the adrenaline from getting together with folks. That's not there any longer. But like they say, sometimes there's a plan for that. Now, you've got a plan for this, am I right?
I guess. The basic thing, Catherine and I, we did one podcast or a live stream a couple weeks ago, and a generous donor donated $1,000 right up front. And we want to put that money into local music or local musicians that are struggling, or if we don't find anybody that fits that criteria, and I'm sure there's many, reach out. We'll donate it to the Food Bank of Iowa. And we've raised about maybe almost $1,100 so far. And we'll do another podcast maybe in a week or so or 2 weeks. But the plan is just to, how's the word? What am I looking for? To pay it forward a little bit. And anybody needs help. I won't mention the name of this next gentleman because he wouldn't like it. But another friend of mine actually called me on the phone and said, it was kind of an insult and it was good in a certain way. He said, Bob, because you're old, I'm just checking to see if you need anything. You need groceries or anything? Well, I'm old, but I'm not that old.
Yeah.
But it shows this man's heart that he was call all his friends to see what they need because he's a little bit younger than us. And I'm getting a lot of that from a lot of people in town. There's a lot of heroes out there these days, and they don't all wear their badge out in public. They want to stay behind the scenes. But to the gentleman that did that for $1,000, God bless you. And to the gentleman that called me, thanks a lot. But really, he did anything for me. I would also mention, if I could, when we get out of this quarantine, first thing I want to do is go see a couple of people. I want to see David and Deshawn Jones.
Yeah.
and just soak up some music for my friends. Also, Matt Woods is a good friend, and I can't wait to just hear him for a whole night just picking and doing what he does. There's a lot of people I can mention, but there's not a lot of time. But we're all going to appreciate our life a lot more when we come through this, and it's going to be a lot more hugging, a lot more social gathering in a good way, and appreciation of life, I think.
Ain't that the truth? Well, a lot of times I give folks the last word, but I think you just gave it. That's great, Bob. There's a silver lining to every dark cloud, and man, this is a dark cloud. So I appreciate that. Those are great thoughts and a great way to end this particular show, folks.
This too shall pass, but vote. Get out there and vote. And for right now, please, young people, stay the hell inside.
Yeah. No kidding. Because because they're bulletproof. They can stay. Yeah, but you might kill somebody. I mean, my God, you would just walk down the street shooting your gun in the air, would you? I mean, That's about what you're doing. So that's well said. All right, pal. That's great. That's Bob Pace, folks, riding out the quarantine in 2020. My God, who'd have thunk it? Who'd have thought we'd ever be here? But we will come out the other side. And if you like this revisit with Bob, if you like Podcast by George, subscribe on YouTube, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and iTunes and all those kind of places, comment, and because we got to keep this thing going. I mean, this is going to last for a while. We might be behind the microphone here talking to folks like Bob for another couple of months, so we want to keep it going. That's going to wrap it up. That's going to do it. That's another Podcast by George.